necessary for a government meeting. So let's make sure that that's all set up, and once we have that, we can get started. Okay. Oh, we got thumbs up already. Thank you all for being here. My name is Pasha. I'm on the county commission. I'm leading the county commission, and I'm here with several of my colleagues. This is night 4 of a series of town halls. We're going around the whole county, meeting with volunteer fire departments to let y'all know we're at the beginning point of a study. Tonight, we're not here to present a study or present any conclusion or tell you what we found or even tell you what we decided. We're doing none of that. What we're doing is we're starting a study to talk about the future of the fire service. And we want to meet with you from the very beginning to make clear that we're seeking input from y'all, the experts, at the beginning of the process. To talk about that process, we have a consultant here, Mr. Knight, but before we get to any of that, we'd love to hear. Now, who is the chief of this department? Oh, okay. It's Mike Food. That's right.
Chief Food. Good evening. So this night, I get to actually wear 2 hats to talk more about the chief side at Middleway Fire Company than as much as I have on the commission side. As we started this study, what we found the last time was the information was all done and handed out to us at the end. We had very little input, and it made for some very uncomfortable situations in our system. This time we wanted to do the full opposite. That's why we're getting together in the early stages, input from all the fire companies into this study so we can make it successful.
And Steve, Commissioner Stoffer will give us the history, and I want to hand it off to Mr. President, and then Commissioner Hepstead will make some comments too.
So about a year ago, we had talked about the Fire Association off to the county commission. It was talking about a levy. At that time, we had some commissioners there that wanted to do a study to understand what the county really needed as far as fire apparatus and staffing. That's kind of why we're here. If we're going to put a levy on the ballot for the voters to vote or have the fire fee vote for a fire fee, we haven't gotten that far yet, but that's something the commission moves forward with. We need to know what we need to spend the money on, because at that time, it's taxpayer money, and we have to be responsible for the taxpayers' dollars. I am the more senior commissioner. I've been in the commission since 2020, so I was involved in the original fish study with the ambulance study, and then obviously with the moving the study now. There are 3 brand new county commissioners who has not been in this since January. Pasha and I are the most senior ones. Pasha was involved when we talked about this study and we ordered the study. So that's why we're here tonight. We want to hear from you. Any thoughts or ideas? And if you want to talk, smack about the chief of this department, that's fine too. I'm kidding. But thanks for being here.
No.
Make sure Commissioner Hepstead.
Good evening. I'm Commissioner Jack Hepstead, and I am not a subject matter expert on firefighting. However, I'm getting a hell of an education coming to these meetings and learning a lot. And I'm building a list of what I consider to be topics that recur with our different meetings. And that's going to help me make my decisions and hopefully put together something for the commission. But the last 2 evenings, we've had really, really good turnout for people, and they've made what I would call a quality comments that were very thoughtful. And that is the way to go if you want us to, and we want to build a strong collaborative effort, the county commission, with all of the firefighting companies. So hopefully we can get good input today from everybody and move forward.
Thank you for hosting.
Good evening. My name is Dan Malamis. I'm the president for Middleway Volunteer Fire Company. A lot of people sometimes don't understand what the role of president is in a lot of the fire companies. For us, my job is overlooking all the finances, making sure that we have a budget together and trying to keep us on that budget. More of the budgetary side, where the chief is taking care of the operational side of once the alarm goes, trucks are going out the door. My job is in between all of that and trying to keep the lights on, everything else moving.
Thank you so much. That's gonna be central to what we're talking about as we get 20 years down the line, how we're gonna get these budgets up. We are at the very beginning of the process. The county commission has hired a consultant, Mr. Knight, to lead us through this process. Again, we're at the beginning. We're collecting information. So we have not written a study. We're soliciting information. And Mr. Knight, could you tell us about this project, where we are, and how you will be getting that information, hopefully from the experts here in the audience?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Steve Knight, retired from the fire service, third generation firefighter. As the president mentioned, we're at the very early stages. So we've been working in the background to capture your response related data, those kinds of things, so that we can do the quantitative data report, drive data driven decision making and GIS reports, et cetera. So that's working in the background on that side. And then we have to balance out all the numbers with common sense, right? And that's a big part of your input for us, is so that we can get from you what's your greatest pinch points, what are the things that are the most challenging for you as an agency, and what kinds of solutions you think are good top drawer things for us to look at and analyze or validate. So thank you for having us. We appreciate the dialogue. It's been going very well across the evenings thus far. So we're looking forward to what you can share, and we'll be typing notes. Thank you.
And you've got a background in firefighting. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So I started as a volunteer. Did that all through my academy. I probably was volunteer for maybe 2-3 years, and then was a career firefighter from there. Did 17 years in a metro department, and I worked for the International City County Managers Association for 2 years, running their fire and EMS consulting. I was their senior manager over that, I should say. And then I moved over to the firm I'm at now about 11 years ago.
Thank you. Chief, want to get us started? Tell us where we are in Middleway and how things are, your view of how things are right now.
Sure, sir. Middleway is the newest fire company in Jefferson County, outside of the career system. Per the fire marshal's office, we are the last volunteer fire company to be put in service. So we have seen the trials and tribulations from day one when we started in a 30 by 30 building down the street. We've built this, and it's a lot of changes over the years. As I came in, we're very structured, very old school. And what I found with that philosophy was failure. And we've got to change the way we look at things and how we adapt the new membership. As you look through the audience here, look at our membership, we go from people from all different age groups and bring them in, attract them here, we train them. We've changed how we've done some of our operations. We're getting them into driving earlier. We used to be very structured in it, and it was hard to get somebody cleared. And we found we had 2 or 3 drivers and we couldn't get out the door because we had members standing here ready to go, but not a driver. That's one of the biggest things that we've seen struggling out here is just in growth. So one we need staffing. Middleway worked towards having an ambulance service. We had 2 ambulances at one point in time. The county had pulled staffing from us. We hired our own. Thanks to some information from another chief who kind of busted my chops in a meeting. I was a little upset about that, Josh, but I will tell you that's the best thing we did. Because we had hired some staff in the February fundraising and not my ambulance. And I was a little upset. But as we came out of that, what I've learned from listening to some of my officers, some of my members, is we have to adapt and change. And if we don't adapt and change, We had a 47% failure rate at one point in time. We got down to less than 1% when we had our paid staffing in here. And we are still rather low in a scratch rate. And all of that has come from a change in mentality. And I want to thank my officers and members for pushing me to make that change and make this place successful. And in turn, you come in here, you don't find a place to sit down, you don't find a place to park. This is operated 100% volunteer, and that is unusual. So one of the things we've got to do, though, is we're still finding trouble getting out during the daytimes, and staffing is where that will help. So we need to work towards staffing. When we look at apparatus, we could use help on. You know, we got a grant for the tanker sitting here. So that was paid for. We had 2 engines outside that are rather old. We're buying another one coming up, it's 2012. And that'll get us quite a few years of use. But as we look at the future, these things are getting more and more expensive, and fundraising is going down. The allocations from the county have not gone up. And the county has told us over and over again, we've got to find a way to get money and a way to prove that we need the increase. That's where the fee presentations and the levy presentations came from with Fire and Rescue Association. And they've asked for more proof of things, and we've kind of changed. We were talking about, we need help to pay for buildings, help to pay for apparatus. Well, as we're looking at what we're seeing now and hearing from a lot of people, it's the opposite of that. It's staffing. And starting out small with staffing, we do a great job fundraising, and that helps us be successful. But what we need is staffing. We need to get an ambulance back in here. We have gone from an average of about a 6.5 minute response time to a patient to well over 13. That's astonishing. That's killing people. Yeah. The county has talked about putting a flex truck here. I have no idea when it's coming, and they're talking about it being here less than 50% of the time. So unfortunately, what we've got to do on the commission side is we need to figure out a tax base, build a tax base in here, and that helps fund these things. We need to look at the levy or look at a fee and see how we're going to present it and make it something successful, because that's the only way we're going to be successful.
Thank you, Chief. We have an expert on the commission, but we want to hear from the experts in the audience. So we've got microphones here, but we're really here to hear from you. And we certainly want to hear about problems that we need to address in the next 6 months or in the next 6 weeks, but also part of the reason we're here tonight is to talk about problems that are coming down the line 10 or 20 years from now. So please don't feel limited to what we're facing right now, but what you see in the future and how we can address it.
I've talked enough last night. Questions? You were part of the fire service, can't be real about that. This is your time. This is your time, West Virginia. Don't be mad. Look,
Not wanting to talk, and my
Roger, why don't you kick things off?
I'll get it started for you.
If you don't know Roger, you will.
Yeah. So these guys are laughing because they've had to deal with me twice now. It would have been more than that, but I was working a couple of the nights in there. So I think my question just is just for my purposes, education for me, because I'm not super familiar with the fire rescue response in Jefferson County. I'm certainly learning, as you mentioned, we're learning a lot through this, which is fantastic. So my question was, it talked about having staffing here. My notes mentioned a flex truck, which you mentioned. Did you have 2-person staffing consistently at one point?
So we started out with 1 person from the county during the day. And they went out, it was a EMT and sometimes a paramedic during the day that went out driver only. And we either had personnel that either went with them in some occasions, or they came from town and they hopped off of their unit onto our unit and then transported. We ultimately hired 1 person in the evening. And I guess that's when we were at a 47% scratch rate. We hired 1 person in the evenings that was an overnight shift. Next thing we knew, here's a volunteer that came to hang out with them because there was somebody here. Then there's 2 volunteers and 3 because there's somebody here. So that's kind of the beginning, how we started getting the membership numbers back up. The group that started this, much older group, we always kind of laugh, we were gonna put a picture on the side of the fire engine of us in a wheelchair and cane walking because we're always kind of known as being an older group out here. So that's kind of how we started with getting this revamp.
So, when you said you hired, somebody nightside, was that you as in the corporation or you as the county?
This is the corporation. We used ambulance, to start it out with, we used ambulance billing money for transport to cover that and the operation of the ambulance. And then the county pulled the staffing during the day. So we at that point used, money from our bingo that we do here every Saturday night to pay for somebody during the day shift.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen that, throughout the country, that the corporations have that, option starting off, but, certainly, and I'm sure you'd agree, it'd be great to have the county funding those positions, so it's a load off of your, you're trying to facilitate the building and the apparatus and so on and so forth. The county should provide the staffing at the very least. I guess I did have another question, in regards to the flex truck. My understanding is that's an optional, sometimes if the staffing from the county allows, they'll put an ambo in service, they can run into, it looks like maybe the chief has a better explanation, just for my educational purposes.
Yeah, we originally had part-time staff, a pretty good, big complement of part-time staff that helped us keep our overtime down. And we saw a trend, we kept losing staff. We were trying to onboard, we were onboarding, spending more money onboarding and losing them by the end of the process than we were retaining them. COVID seemed to really kill it. A lot of the guys were careers somewhere else. And those employers restricted their part-time work because they were afraid to get sick and be out at their main job. So they continued to trend down. We had just very few left that were consistent, that worked, and before we either lost that chunk of funding because we weren't utilizing it, came up with an idea of creating an additional 24-hour ambulance that's not part of minimum staffing. And that truck will be used, the staffing for it will backfill vacancies to reduce our wages and overtime. And if there's a day where there's no holes, then that's an extra truck and it will be here to supplement this system. So hopefully a way to segue back into getting future full-time staff here, but help keep our budget down at the same time.
Sure, and that exists today, is that if you have staffing enough for that truck?
We have the 8 people hired, half of them are ready to go, and it'll be in service hopefully by November 1st. Kind of a floating start date, but.
And then we also have offered, if one of the people on that unit is pulled to somewhere else in the county, I have a couple of members that are clear providers in the county that we could, if they would be willing to commit to a shift, to be able to stay and operate that as a full unit. I'm still waiting to hear an answer back on that. I've not got anything back from the ESA on that as of yet.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I hope I got the ball rolling and more people are gonna hop in here.
And you don't have to ask a question, you can just give us your opinion. How are things working? What changes are needed? What changes do we need for 10 years from now?
Well, while I still have the mic, I'll say I do appreciate, again, similar to the sentiment from last night, the honesty from the volunteer corporation there was fantastic to see. I almost insist on grabbing the mic again before we left to thank those, the 2 members, the president and the chief, for their honesty and their openness. It's more than I've seen, at least in my jurisdiction. There's typically a lot of animosity, a lot of fighting, and a lot of ego that gets in the way of providing a service. So I'm very glad to see that the volunteers that in this jurisdiction that I've experienced so far are willing to do the right thing and have the hard discussions and be honest for the sake of the community. So I'm remain very thankful that that's the relationship. The gentleman last night specifically said that he did not feel as if the county or the career staff were coming in to push the volunteers out, and that really meant a lot to me because that's the fight that we have in our jurisdiction. It really, weighs heavily on us because we're not trying to push anybody out or be disrespectful or take over, you know, we're just trying to provide the best service to the community. So if everybody's on that same page, that's a really, as silly as it sounds, it's a really beautiful thing, you know, you can really start going in the right direction, making good things happen, with everybody being on the same page. And now someone please take the mic from me.
So I wanted to, so looking at my vision for 20 years from now, I still see us needing to be a combination system. The outright cost of fire trucks just in the past 5 years, and a fire engine has almost doubled just in 5 years. So if that cost doesn't get some kind of control mechanism, it's going to be nearly impossible to replace apparatus. Right now, we're buying used apparatus that are close to 10 years old for the cost of what it was brand new, because these fire companies that were able to purchase them brand new, and now with what the cost of over $1 million for an engine, for a new engine, is just obscene. And without some kind of steady funding mechanism, there's no way for smaller departments, especially one like this one, to be able to afford $1.2 million for an engine and sustain that for a replacement cycle for 3 heavy units. It's just an obscene number. So that's one of the things that I hope that at some point we can come together and figure out a funding mechanism. Yes, we do a lot of fundraising, and I'm very grateful for our group here, because we do some of the most fundraising out there, and it's very taxing. We do bingo all the time, and you know, it's one of the things that holds up some departments from growing. It's held us up some too. And I'm not saying that we need to not do any fundraising, but we need to be able to limit some of it at some point and be able to focus more on our training and everything else. But until we have that funding mechanism, there's no way to do that.
Oh, here we go. I have. So many years ago, Shepherdstown, as the county of Shepherdstown, because it was Shepherdstown and out there on its own. Middleway has turned into our own little community, and we're just kind of out there as a satellite on our own. What's to stop us in our thriving budget and our thriving membership, getting our own ambulance and getting our money back from the ambulance fees, the charges we make to carry patients to provide coverage? Why can't we do that? Why do we have to depend on or wait for? Nothing bad, Mike, but why do we have to wait for the county to? What's to stop us from doing that?
So one of the things, the almost 2 years that we had 24-hour staffing here that we were paying for, we watched our monetary reserve drop almost $200,000.
But we've got a thriving budget now.
Yeah, but
we have very judicious in their budgetary management. Why can't we do it again?
so the thing is that what we found was the building money that came in didn't cover 24-hour staff. It's just not enough funds coming in. So then we're pulling from other avenues. And as I said, what we found, and when we were doing that, was actually at our peak of fundraising. Our bingo was actually netting the most that it ever had. And we were using that money plus in order to pay for staffing, just to have that one person 24 hours a day. Let alone plus the cost of the ambulance, the lease for the ambulance, supplies, and everything else. We were literally hemorrhaging money. And even today, we would be pretty much right in that same boat.
So let's carry the streets aside. Are there any restrictions from us, understandings with the county or anything that says we couldn't do it? If we could come up with our own better funding?
Yes, the county has taken over EMS in the county, and they are the ones that have that authority.
There's
So-
other ones that do that?
No.
Okay. I'm satisfied. Someone else wants to mic?
If any go
I
on,
know Danny Martin's got something to say, you can hand it to him.
Mhm.
You're never bashful, go ahead, Danny.
All right. As y'all know, I'm a numbers man. When I go back to when we started a similar process called EMS services at each of the stations. And the county was going along, it was going to help us supplement with some manpower at those stations. Started out real nice. Was working well. But as time went by, we got into the situation, and I'm not saying it was right, it was wrong, but it's the situation we have an opportunity to avoid again. All of a sudden, it become the attitude, both sides. I'm beating my lunch, he's paid to do that damn job, let him run that ambulance. Him being the paid guy. Then the paid guy comes back and says, you're gonna run the next one. Back and forth, back and forth. The bottom line became a point where it was paid versus volunteer. Whatever you do going forward, keep that in mind. We need an environment where there is not, oh, that's a paid man versus that's a volunteer man. There needs to be an environment where it is 100% equal status. But we're going down the road of collision again. An engine needs minimum 3 bodies on it. Those assignments need to be equally served for the cause. Not the paid man sitting under the steering wheel, with the paid man being the one in the back that's got to do building entry. It needs to be equal across the board. I like the numbers out of it. You happy? But again, we've got an opportunity. We can't do it all with volunteers. County ain't got enough money to do it all with paid staff and buy the equipment too, by the way. So keep in mind what the static was when we tried to do supplemental management. Thank you.
Hey, Danny,
Sir,
you were past treasurer of Citizens.
Correct.
Many years.
many years.
Right, so some of the what's the challenges there with the money and the funding, where does it go? What do you see the greatest need, as far as that?
Apparatus. Of course, we didn't have it. We never had a payroll, never had a paid member of citizens. Apparatus, and overall insurance, general cost of operation, keeping that thing on the road. You pull out there and have turn a curb too short, pop a tire. Time you get service, $200,000 for that tire with the service call.
I heard a comment at a town hall. I don't know if it's true or if it's not, one that has the experts in the room. The comment I heard was, if you look across Jefferson County, you look at all the different departments, if you look at what the county owns, if you look at what volunteer fire departments own. The comment was, we already have all the vehicles and equipment that we need. What do y'all think of that comment?
So I think that we have some departments are sitting very well with equipment. Others are still struggling because we're not well-established departments. So we still have a need for that funding site to be able to provide that replacement apparatus, as I said earlier. I mean, currently we have a 1995 rescue engine sitting outside. So that's, you know, in a lot of jurisdictions, that's not even heard of anymore. And we pay the price in maintenance because of it being over 30 years old, we have a hard time getting parts. There are some parts, we had this truck just this past year. It sat outside for about 2 months while a custom radiator had to get built for it because we had a leak in the radiator. And there's other stories of the same thing of parts like that that just aren't made anymore. So, you know, it's just like your car. You have older cars and you try and get a part that's specific to that car, you can't get it anymore, especially when it's 30 years old. So, you know, we sit here and cry that we need newer apparatus. There's a reason for that. Newer apparatus also provide better safety features. You go to a newer truck, there's rollover protection. There's airbags into a man. All that kind of stuff that's not sitting out there. So besides the fact that, okay, yes, it's nice, new and fancy, there's safety features that help to protect our firefighters because we could be the best driver in the world. It doesn't matter that if somebody coming up the other way hits us. And we want to give our firefighters the best chance. So.
President Bowden, I believe I made that comment last night at our spirit. And what I was relating to is we have the fire departments all have the equipment they need, but staffing in here right. We have the fire trucks for them to respond on, utility vehicles for the manpower, we have the boats for them to float on. We have everything they need, ladder trucks, never said that we wouldn't need help getting it replaced. That's when we were talking about the fees and what the fees could do in the future and a replacement plan for apparatus, just to make that comment clear.
That's not the thing.
Okay.
There was a question the other night about dry hydrants and underground storage tanks. When you're on a big fire out here, where's your source of water?
So we have 45 square miles and I have one fire hydrant. And that fire hydrant is provided by Berkeley County, has Berkeley County threads. And I can't tell you how many times we want to call and we would send somebody to that fire hydrant and they put it out of service because they can't attach a hose to it. Because not everybody in this county has the adapter. We've made everybody aware of it. We've also made them aware that if you use a different port on it, but the one that's most commonly used needs a special adapter. Other than that, we do drills here where we dam up the creek that heads down from Lake Louise out to the old 3M plant. And we do rural water movement out of that. We have practiced out here with dump tanks. And we, besides that, travel towards town to get water. One of the things that we don't get very often from the planning commission is the letter that's supposed to go out to all the chiefs asking about the development. When I do get them, it's usually after the cutoff date. By the time I get them, I always answer when I get them. And my answer is, while I do not disapprove the community, I would like to see for every 3 to 4 houses being built, an in-ground storage tank be supplied for fire suppression. Doesn't ever get brought up.
Thank you, sir.
For that end, what Chief Bruce statement, how do we do that? How do we control the development of the county to meet the needs of the infrastructure that's here? We've got a huge amount of development going on. Unchecked, I think, my personal opinion. But there's nothing being done to the infrastructure, volunteers, sheriff's office, all the stuff that's supposed to, that these people, how are they just paying for, oh my God, it's fun. And then they say, well, it's not like where I used to be at. We still need that stuff. We're here, we grew up here, we live here, we have this stuff and it's being drained by these people and these developments coming in. Something still needs to be applied to the infrastructure for the fire, for the water, for the reserves and sheriffs. What are we gonna do about that? And I know you're expecting things, that's all it's mine.
I will tell you that when I referred to the planning commission, there were several vacancies on there. And I did go talk to a fireman and talk to a fireman about running and putting his name into that position, which he did, and he's on there now. And he's starting to bring up some of the things I just talked about. So that was kind of my, if I can't get it one direction, let's work for another and figure out how we can start trying to get that information in there. If we're not gonna get the questions early enough, if we can get people on these boards, then maybe we can get it done another way.
And just so you know, we have this similar question asked at every town hall so far about the growth in Jefferson County. We don't have the exact percentage, but we're guessing, we're saying around 80% of most of the growth is inside the municipalities. That's where you're seeing the majority of that at. This commission is very poised and wants to bring in commercial growth because residential growth does not pay their own way. Commercial growth does. And that's what's going to make Jefferson County thrive. Right now, you talked about infrastructure here in Middleway. There's an amazing opportunity for Middleway to have fire hydrants. And that's with a water line that's going to be from, I don't know, out here on 51 and put in the ground from 51 over to the 3M plant, the former 3M plant. I believe they were going to put fire hydrants out there like 100 feet, 1,000 feet.
So I have had several meetings with them and there's a lot of unhappiness with them in the community. But when I got the word they were coming, the first thing I did was set up a meeting with them because my understanding at that point in time is they were going to be bringing water in from Berkeley County. So my first question to them is, if you bring it in from Berkeley County, will you put hydrants throughout your facility and how far out of your facility can I get them? At the first planning commission meeting during the concept plan, when it was revealed that the water line was going to come from Lake Louise all the way here, I got with an insurance company to find out if fire hydrants were installed on that, what would the person that lived in that vicinity say? And they looked that information up for me, and they would say roughly 28% on their homeowner's insurance if they had a hydrant within 1,000 feet of their home. So I turned that and went back to Sidewinder, and I did talk with them and asked them, if you're going to put this here, not that I necessarily support it being here, but this is go. Will you put hydrants in? They didn't even blink an eye and said, absolutely. What do you want? How do you need them? And they were looking at every 2,000 feet to put a fire hydrant in. So that way, any resident should be within 1,000 feet when that facility goes into place.
And that's the type of commercial development that's going to really help us thrive here because the developers putting in the water line, their expense, and the community is going to benefit from it. So, yep.
Thank you. And one thing you also know, the county commission has not voted on the pure project. So we do not have a position as a commission. Two of your commissioners individually spoke on it. If you want to know anybody's opinion, ask, hey, Steve, what do you think about it? Hey, Mike, what do you think about it? As a group with that process. I smile when you brought up because I'm the guy, I can't tell you what's the right engine. I can't tell you what apparatus we need. That's not really what I do. But what I bring to the commission is I look at our budget and I look at the long-term impact of how we're growing, and I see a huge problem. And when I first joined the commission, I was appointed to a vacancy. And the first thing I said was that we have a major problem in Jefferson County. That's that we have too much residential growth and not enough commercial, and that does not balance the books for the reason the commission stopped mentioned. We have low taxes on residential, which is why people want to move here, right? That's a big part of it, a big part. And that's a good thing. We want to keep that going, but it doesn't pay its way. So when you have these mega housing developments that come in, you get a lot of people coming onto the system, taxing the infrastructure. And we don't get the resources financially to pay for the infrastructure that's needed. We've made a couple of changes. One is the commission voted to, and 4 of the 5 current commissioners all voted on this. The commission voted to raise impact. What that means is when you have a new development that comes in, growth pays growth. So the new people are going to have to pay into the system. We can pay for the improvements that are needed. That's a good step in the right direction. Another thing we got to do is we got to recruit the right types of businesses in Jefferson County, as you were mentioning. Right now, of our top 10 employers, 9 out of 10 do not pay taxes. And we love them. That's a good thing. We want universities. We want government. We want customs and border protection. We're so happy that they're here. But when 9 out of 10 of your top employers are not paying taxes, you got a tax cut. So we're going to have to balance that out over time and bring in some commercial growth and jobs so that we can help pay for that infrastructure that's needed. I've got a question for the group. I've got a question for the group. I'll say it in mind so it's recorded. One thing that is, I guess, kind of a positive, maybe silver lining, I don't know, we're not the only county facing this problem. All the counties around here are facing the problem. All the counties across America are facing the problem. Some of them that saw development at a rapid pace 20, 30 years ago can give us a playbook. This is what Loudoun County did. This is what Frederick County did. This is what Washington County is doing. So my question for y'all, the experts, when you look around at neighboring jurisdictions, do you have any places that you say, maybe we should take a look at what they did? They might have done the right thing. Or are there any places where you'd say, you know, I hope we don't emulate what they did because that didn't go well? Any advice on that?
I think Loudoun County, dividing West, Eastern Loudoun County, good idea. Develop everything over here.
You speaking to Mike?
Pardon?
You speaking to the mic?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we're on Zoom. That's why you got to speak in the mic so it picks it up for the people watching on Zoom. Thank you. The microphone now.
I think the Loudoun County design with eastern and western Loudoun counties is a good idea. Maybe a little tweaking here and there for Jefferson County, you know, develop Shepherd's County and I don't know Shepherd's County, but that's me. Develop the communities like that and leave areas like us, Middleway, up on the mountain, you know, leave them more rural, try and protect those areas. And maybe bring some control where we limit the developers, get rid of some of the developers, deny some of the developers. Cut that back a little bit because the growth, even in the communities, is outpacing everything else. And we're trying to keep up with it. So I think that's a good idea. And on the flip side, I do like Berkeley County's fire plan. We have staff and 2 guys staff, like we used to have here, like Josh was for his job, you know, the fire department here. 2 paid guys in the station that run the volunteer apparatus when nobody's around, or the volunteers will come and supplement or take over, and the paid guys can sit and watch TV like they do with their shoes off.
But I said, I don't know what that person.
But that's, I think the Loudoun County plan is something possible to look at and tweak it a little bit for here. I don't know if anybody else shares that same idea, but that's. The divide between eastern and western Loudoun is always been fantastic, because you come off the mountain, it's all green. And then you're.
So one of the things that we see here growth wise is the vast majority of the growth, we have absolute zero control over because it's within the municipalities. And they're creating a lot of this load, we have no say in it. We could do some things in our area to restrict lot sizes, things like that. But you still have the vast majority is coming in town.
And I'll just add to that, 20 years ago, when the county commission tried to restrict growth, when they had a very anti-business county commission, a lot of people who own land, they annexed into the city. That's why we're having all this big growth in the city. So, it's been tried before, it wasn't successful. And, if we go out and say, okay, you got 100 acres outside of town, you can only build 10 houses, well, they're gonna annex into the city. And if we say, no, you can't do that, but the law says I can, then we're in a lawsuit. So it's tough.
That is a obvious question. I feel that Frederick County, Virginia is our closest model to Jefferson County. That's because they are playing the same rural role that this county does. They're still staffing with minimum, they're cross staffing animal system fire engines. And they have grown from the same situation in Jefferson County is right now. So if you were to look closely, that would probably be closest compared to Berkeley operates two different entities, currently invest. Loudon has the tax base to support what we cannot, what we could only push for down the road, maybe our 20-year plan, not our 3 to 5 year. Another question when we're talking about development, you say a lot of this, how many developments have been approved this year to come into the rural areas of the county?
No, I'm not on
No,
plan.
there's a number out.
Yeah.
How many?
Major subdivision?
Well, I don't have those numbers. A lot of these developments that are coming in were approved, some of them 10, 15 years ago for their development. And they're just not getting
good,
it
right? I'm not trying to blow off Steve. Pointed too many or approved too many.
right.
What I'm getting at is, as these developments are getting approved in the rural areas, yours, mine, now places like that that don't have that water. So those hydrants coming in out here to the water plant's great. People live right there to the water plant. It doesn't help them with anybody to the west of here at all, right? So their ISO rating, their insurance, there's no savings. So is there a plan, or can you look at a plan that when these developments, large developments are put in, that there is some sort of man-made lake with a dry hydrant with it, or there's some sort of in-ground water tank? Does your study recommend those type of water sources in these rural areas?
Yeah, I think you guys are spot on. I think the strategy that we would probably recommend is for the areas that you can have influence on the development through the planning process, you could have mitigation strategies that are required for that development. So just like you said, if you're putting in a house on X number of acres, you might require some kind of a, cistern or underground tank or something like that. If they're doing a development and there's no hydrants, then there's usually in fire code, some kind of mechanism for a mitigation strategy outside of only having hydrants. So whether that's sprinkling the house, whether that's having a cistern, there's a lot of things that you can.
But your report will reflect those recommendations to rural areas here in this county.
Yes, because, bringing water, I'm sure everybody can agree, is a major investment to bring that infrastructure when the horses have left the barn a long time ago. That's a pretty hefty.
But you're right, what you're referring to is the development that's out in the county, that's what we call minor subdivisions. That's usually 6 houses or less. And, they're certainly not served with public water or sewer. And, they're on a well and septic. And then, they are always, administratively, they are approved by the administrators in the plan. It's not a public hearing, any of that stuff. So that's hard for me to track.
So-
how many come in ask for
Right now, is there a process where you can formulate a requirement after X amount of houses in a rural area that has long traffic time? That isn't staffed per se right now today, that would require a developer to make sure there is a water source in that development for fire departments to use.
So that is part of why I tried to get a firefighter on the planning commission to start talking about that. And I know that he is talking about that there. So my hope is that we're gonna start heading that direction of trying to put a requirement into that. So I know he is looking at other areas to see what their requirements are and trying to see if we can't mimic that and bring that in to Jefferson County.
Yeah, so there is a process to put that in sub breaks, on sub breaks on the planning commission. I just learned the other night, I think I was at citizens, meeting and, development out here called Harleywood. I don't think one, it's my understanding they have a 3,000 gallon underground tank company.
But that wasn't a county requirement in order for the subdivision to go in. So what I was asking is, as you move forward with plans and how to mitigate staffing issue, water supply issue, and the development issues in the area, is that something that the commission could look at putting into those requirements of putting in a development?
That is possible, absolutely. It could be like a sliding scale, something like that.
And correct, it's probably, it doesn't have one for the entire neighborhood. And
How many gallons?
I think it's 3,000, I think. And like I said, that's 3,000 gallons right there. It was one time, I know, suck it.
That's not. How many gallons of water per sprinkler tank? How many gallons of your underground sprinkler tank?
27,000 gallons is sitting underground for this building.
Our resident planning commissioner, he's had an obligation, so she couldn't make it. She'd be able to answer a lot of these questions. I'm referring to our former planning commissioner, Commissioner Stolper, Commissioner Hepestay. They both served on the planning commission. I keep bringing up planning commission because that's where the vast majority of this stuff happens. And there's, I'll give you the 30-second version and from a non-expert, but there's two different steps. One is a rezoning, and the other is to actually get a project approved. You can have a rezoning from farmland to residential that took place in 1986, but they don't actually build on it until they economic. And then they'll come to the planning commission and say, hey, we want to do a project and get their approvals and whatnot. A lot of this stuff that was rezoned in the 80s, 90s, so in 2000, and of course, there was that drop in housing construction with the housing crash for that in 2008. So some of this stuff has already been rezoned. The county commission doesn't handle a lot of rezonings, but to answer your question, I'll give a couple of examples of two rezonings that did come to the county commission recently and how we handled it. On one of them, there was a request for rezoning for residential development. And we actually negotiated a density cap. And we said, look, we as county commissioners are concerned about the pace of residential development in Jefferson County. It's too fast, it's too much. Can you put in writing that you're gonna have a limit of how much housing you're gonna put in here? And they agreed to that. So that's a demonstration of our perspective. Another example is somebody came in and said, well, I want to do a combination of residential and commercial. And we said, well, would you be willing to do only commercial? Because we were concerned about blah, 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 same thing we just said. And he said, yeah, I'll do this. And we approved that. And that's in the process right now. So we don't do a lot of it, but when it does come up, that you can see a theme emerge. We are concerned about the lack of balance. We need balance growth.
Interesting when you bring up balanced growth and all that development in the rural areas. Somewhere along about 20 years ago, I sat on the planning commission. One of the seeds I tried to plant then that just didn't grow. Seems to be a little bit more amenable today. Why haven't we in this county considered a multi-function developments? We have a major traffic issue right now. Why not do commercial and residential consolidated into a given development? Reduce the traffic requirement. I'd love to have a job. No, I don't want to work anymore. I would love to have had a job where I could walk to my office rather than getting in the car, sitting in traffic. But, well, Route 9 at 5 o'clock, try to go toward Martinsburg right now. Or try to come back from Martinsburg in the mornings. And it's only gonna get worse. We got a whole lot more people coming into this county. And nobody's working here because we don't have a place for them to work. Let's look at multi-function development. Residential, commercial within the compounds of that development. Just my thoughts.
I 100% agree with you. There has been some developments that tried that and are still developing out the commercial, like Fairfax Crossing, they're still developing that commercial. But someone who deals with a little bit of commercial real estate, the commercial doesn't show up until they get the rooftops and the people there. Just for example, like a Costco requirements is 200,000 residents within a 20-mile radius, and then they'll locate. So until you get the rooftops, you usually don't get some of those special type of businesses that we like. I know everybody likes the Wegmans or Harris Teeter or Costco, which we all can agree on or disagree on, but they have a certain criteria that they will not locate into an area until there's certain rooftops and a certain demographic as far as how much income households have or earn.
Understood. Office complex. Technology park. Residential, in a nice complex, sitting in the middle of it.
Have you considered volunteering for some of these county committees we have? I think that, so, some of these points you're raising, we could not agree with more. I mean, that's exactly what we're thinking.
As I said, 20 years ago, I tried it and I got tired of beating my head against the wall.
So some of what we've seen is different commissioners, we've all been talking about business growth. And that's not happening in this county. We've had a county that's, a lot of the residents don't want growth. And they've kind of been the vocal minority in some cases. In other cases, we've had a development authority that wasn't working towards bringing development. Part of why we changed the development authority around and got people on the development authority that are pro-growth, that want to bring smart growth and bring growth into this county to help build the tax base that we need.
We're drowning, we don't.
Correct, we are drowning. Yeah, we are drowning. That's why we went out and did what we did. We changed the development authority around and got people on there from all different aspects to help bring growth to this county. And in bringing that growth to this county, that will ultimately help bring additional tax base that can help improve public safety.
And to your point, Danny, a couple years ago, we had a big business that came in here that brought some really good jobs. That was Rockwell. And a lot of other, there was, with the opposition that was president at that time, it stopped a lot of other businesses from coming into this county. You know, they're a great neighbor. They had a lot of activists that came out against it. We shouldn't be here right now if you listen to the activists, because the activists said we're all gonna die. Our horses weren't gonna be able to run, the thoroughbreds are gonna die. We were gonna have to shut down all the schools. Nobody was gonna build a house in this county because of Rockwell. Well, last year we had a record year. This year we have another record year. We usually build about 300 to 400 houses permits a year. We were just under 1,000 last year, and we're over 1,000 this year. And I hate to say it, those same activists right here in Middleway are trying to stop this. They're trying to stop your water line to get you hydrants in Middleway. So those same activists from Shepherdstown, they probably, some of them couldn't find Middleway on the map, are here. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I'm president of the commission, so I'll speak on behalf of the commission. The commission did not vote on Rockwell, did not vote on Mountain Pure. Any particular commissioner can give you their individual opinion. We do not have a group opinion on that. We never fixed that on the record. And one, all right.
One more time, but I'm gonna put that.
By the way, Rockwell was in a municipality.
Yeah.
Not in Jefferson County. So the land that Rockwell was built on was owned by Ransom. And they're supreme on that. And it was not a Jefferson County decision to bring it in or to stop it. And as Steve said, and I hate to agree with Steve, but I will, occasionally, Rockwell has turned out to be a very, very good neighbor. My only objection to Rockwell, how many years ago, was I didn't like the location particularly. I felt if they had built the plant closer down to Ransom, no one would have even noticed. So I had a little different view than Steve. So that might be 2 or 3 times Steve and I have agreed on something now. But I hope there's more. Hope there's more. Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like
Okay,
oh,
back
so
on
go
the
ahead.
fire department feature here, sorry. We're all talking, it's starting to sound like a building committee meeting. So is there a plan B for the county commission? Have you guys met with the SA, you discussed the what ifs between the next 3 and 5 years on the staffing plans? And what money you can get into the budget in order to start getting back to par in the county, the staff? And have you also discussed the upcoming FEMA grant opening to committee money so that you can apply for more staffing through that grant and committing?
We have not applied for any FEMA grant staffing yet.
Correct. That's coming up, is what I'm saying. It's gonna open in another month or so. The commission would be very wise to work with Chief Son on that grant to commit to the funding for the personnel that they can help supply for. And that would be a huge help to your budget problem at the moment, would be a huge help of benefiting the community of getting budgets.
I agree.
So the safer grants, well, yes, they absolutely are great. One of the cautions you have to have is what we have to commit to at the end. But I don't disagree with you. It is something.
So I would agree that you have cautious, but we are literally sitting here in a meeting for the future staffing needs of a county, and you're trying to say, we don't have the money, we gotta bring in commercial business to get the money. Well, how long does that take? It takes a while, and that also takes a long while to grab if we don't offer any more pilot programs, right? So at the end of the day, there is a grant process that can offer you them. They are giving money away like nobody's business, right? And they want to see counties and cities become compliant with NFPA. You apply for it, you commit to that money 4 or 5 years down the road, you will get the people you need. It is there, and they will give it. This county will qualify like right now.
I agree with you.
I think a serious thought needs to be played into.
I agree with you. I think it's something that we need to look at. We've got a grant writer that we've hired for the county now. I think it's something we should be reviewing with her and having her get started. And when we talk about FEMA grants, I got notified yesterday through Sam, my company president, that we just got one. We got $64,000 in AFG to replace 14 sets of gear.
Good. Congratulations.
So,
Now let's work with the county ESA, the county commission, and see if we can get about 24 to 60 firefighters put in the county off of that type.
I think it's something we absolutely, I think it is something we should look at and get our grant writer starting to work on that and starting to look at how we can use it.
Work fast, because it's going to open and close, you know.
Right. Yeah, yesterday we also, I guess they finally decided to award grants for this year. Everyone's been waiting. We put it for breathing apparatus for the SCB for the ESA, because we borrow from all the volunteer companies where we have units. So we were advised that we received a grant somewhere in range of $250,000 for 32, I believe it's up to 32 packs. So we'll have something on every piece of apparatus that we use. So that was
fantastic.
a great,
Congratulations.
I think that was a great move and one of the reasons why we pushed for our FDID. So
Job well done. That's fantastic news.
So one of the things though is, and as we're looking at the future, these grants are great, but at some point, will the FEMA well run dry? And if that, because as we're looking for these, as I keep saying, we need to look at those funding mechanisms. Yes, we need to, I agree with Josh about looking at safer and everything else, but at some point, these grants are gonna run dry. We're fortunate we got this in at a really great time to be able to replace a whole lot of aging gear. But we can't keep planning to run on grants. We need to make sure that we have a mechanism in there to replace turnout gear, replace fire apparatus. Because apparatus grants, you've been looking at, I'm sure, how many of you see get awarded anymore?
They're only allowed to award 10% of the money in apparatus acquisition.
Yeah, 10% of the entire FEMA budget for AFG. Well, now, when you're at over $1 million per unit, that eats up really fast. So they're awarding nationwide. So the amount of apparatus grants has dwindled down to almost nothing.
And could you, ask our grant writer to look into the suggested? Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Other comments, thoughts, 10 years down the road, 15, 20 years down the road, what should we be thinking about?
Or not to beat a dead horse again, but Commissioner Moon and I have bandied it out. What's the agreements between the county and the communities because of this unchecked growth that the communities and municipalities are causing? They're coming out into the county and using the county road, using the county services when they do stuff. How does the county plan on recouping or gaining budgetary influences from the counties to help? Or is that even a thing?
We just have to compare what they do. Isn't there an old country song, the county's against the city, the city's against the county, sort of, that's how it goes. I mean, we certainly don't have any control over them and their jurisdiction, and the same goes for them as well. So we basically have to prepare for any type of growth that takes place in the cities. Same thing is, there's a lot of growth in Berkeley County. A lot of those people drive up through our roads to get to Loudoun County and go to work. That's just things we have to prepare for.
It would help to start a dialogue though. And I've invited all the mayors to get together to have a conversation, in my role as commission president, with all the mayors of our towns and cities or municipalities. That's what that term means, if you don't know. And we should be having a conversation at the very least. And especially in the context of, very vociferous complaints from some of the municipalities about the commercial growth that we're seeking in the county. I'd like to explain, well, hold on a second. We need that commercial growth to balance out the residential that you're approving. Right? We're not doing it for fun, right? We're trying to balance an equation here. So we're going to start having that conversation and see how we can at least start planning together. I'll also say, I certainly do not speak for them, right? But from watching their statements on radar interviews and whatnot, I understand that some of the cities are looking at changing their codes because they're also concerned that it's moving too far and too fast. So I don't speak for them, but it seems to me that it's a good idea. Closing comments. Would you like to give us a sense of what's next in the process as we solicit data?
Yes, thank you. So moving forward from here, we're anticipating that we'll probably be back with some of the data elements in around the 60-day range. And then we'll continue to do these stakeholder meetings this week, tomorrow night as well. And then we'll take a week off, and then we'll hit the last 3 or 4 agencies the following week. So that's all scheduled. So that part's good. And then each agency's been requested a series of background information, just high-level things like the apparatus and personnel and things like that. So we're gathering all that. And once we get all these pieces together, then we'll start formulating some ideas. What I shared with the other groups is, one, we want to be extremely transparent, as evidenced by this, but we also want to be data-driven. So what we want to do as we start to come back, and maybe we could even form a small steering committee or something, if that would be helpful. But we want to make sure that we shop the data when we come back with that, and it passes the common sense test, right, from you all and what you know about your communities. Because if we're going to disagree about any of the data elements, we need to do it on the front side, so that when we're talking about potential solutions, we're not then going back to the beginning and starting to discuss, well, the data is flawed, and therefore the recommendations are flawed. So we want to all be holding hands on that in the beginning phase. And that's going to be an important element so that we can really focus all of our collective efforts on what are viable solutions that will both meet your needs and pass the policy test.
So have you reached out already to solicit data?
Yes, we're getting data from the 911 system. And then each of the departments have been providing some data.
And if any of you have not heard about that, talk to your leadership. Obviously, there's no line of communication there with the county. Any closing comments, Chief Food? Commissioner Happenstead?
I've got generally an open mind on this topic, although I'm very pro fire departments, EMS and police. I have to admit that I am pro. But I think this county commission is a lot different than previous county commissions. You probably heard all the controversy over the JCDA. And I think that was a necessary move to get our minds in gear and to bring some commercial enterprises into this county, which we desperately need. With that said, I think I could speak for most of us anyway, is that we're not looking to bring in any sort of a business that would be considered to be a pollutant or harmful to the county. So we're being very, very careful with that. But on the other hand, the previous JCDA didn't provide us anything to vote for or even vote against. It was basically nothing was there, nothing was coming out. There was a lot of kerfuffle on the board over bylaws, and it was just a mess. So kudos to Pasha and Mike for stepping forward and making that resolution, which I felt supported to get us good people in there and let us move ahead. But thank you all for your comments tonight. I wish more of you had spoken up, but I guess that sometimes listening is a good thing. I like to listen and try to make some sort of decision off of inputs that I receive. So thank you for being courteous and thoughtful.
I don't have anything, just to say thank you for comments. I'm gonna hand it over to Tasha.
And just to wrap up here, there's an old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take more time. And if we try and go fast, we can't do it together. We are committed to being collaborative and listening to you. It's going to take a little bit longer, but that's the way we want to do it because we want to go far. And with that in mind, we'll close for tonight. We'll be in touch. Thank you, everybody.
All right. That's how she nailed it. This is, we're all.